Okay, so this is Cassidy and Kyle. We're going to talk through our think tank here at Trigger Point. You know, we've got Interbike coming up, and I know you're a gym rat, so you've spent most of your time in a gym, whereas I spent, once again, most of my time outside. And, you know, cycling's one of those things where, you know, I think that everybody knows how to ride a bike, but that may not necessarily be the case. Right. So first off, let's talk about the posterior lower leg, because most people in most worlds don't ever actually think about it, because we've got, you know, we're just using our stick figure here. There's your ankle. You got a bunch of muscle that houses itself right here. And most of those insertion points go to the bottom of the foot, right? And so if we want to really drive more force out of the quad, is it important that we really think about, you know, the muscles of the posterior lower leg?
Absolutely. Not only think about the muscles, but think about the actions that happen in the foot itself. Yeah. You know, oftentimes we think about just moving through the ankle, so that's just up and down motion, but if that motion is restricted or limited, then it's going to find that motion somewhere else, which is going to be not dissipating forces the right way, which is different in a cycling setting, but you still start to alter the position of that calcaneus back and forth, which changes how the muscles fire themselves, which will also alter the knee, the hip, and everything else up the rest of the body.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is, what a lot of people don't think about here is, you know, once again, I obsess about the Achilles tendon. I mean, we're the only animal that has the Achilles tendon where it inserts into the calcaneus. So it allows us to get in this crazy cool position, which is standing, which most other animals have a pretty difficult time doing that and moving the way that we do. But if you think about this here, if we think about posterior lower leg and quad, if I want to generate force and reduce the wear and tear on the knee, I'm going to have to create the elasticity in the back side of the leg here, just so that we can have foot mobility. And then, of course, we're going to generate more power out of the quads, right?
Right, absolutely.
So once that happens, then you've got those nice big glutes back up in there, that then we're going to be able to activate the glutes based off of the foot functionality on top of a pedal.
It helps out for sure.
So if you think about the idea here, and I'm just going to try to draw, you know, very simple, you know, kind of fulcrums and levers here. If I'm going to really want to take advantage of this lower leg, if I want to pedal through the center of my pedal here, this knee is going to come up just slightly forward, and then that's going to allow me to really activate and pull through the center of the quads. And so what happens is, you know, most people here get in this kind of aerodynamic position here where they get into their pedals, and they think that this is the way that they're supposed to be positioned on top of their saddle. But unfortunately, what happens there is they cut off the diaphragm. So if you can't breathe, you can't perform, nor can you recover. What does that do to the lower leg?
Well, whenever we shut off the diaphragm, shut off all of this area right here, we also interfere with the ability of the quads to fire the way they're supposed to, because we've altered the position of the hips. Yeah. So the glutes, quads, and calves, now they're all going to be sort of inhibited or become dysfunctional, so to speak, because we've changed the position of one. Right. So now all of a sudden we've altered there, but that's also going to limit range of motion in the long run anyway, down here in the ankle. It's going to decrease our ability to fire through the soleus, which we know is a very powerful muscle, especially whenever we look at a power stroke of cycling.
Yeah, let me use your brown here for a minute. So basically what you really want to be pulling through here when you're on the downside of your pedal stroke, then you're going to rotate between 6 and 9 o'clock. That's when you're going to have this glute activation. Then as you come through your pedal stroke, then the quads are going to take over between basically 11 and 2 to 3 o'clock, and just kind of are actually all the way down into 6 o'clock. So it's going to create this rotational movement there. But here's the idea, is once you get into this dysfunctional position here, really what we want to do here is we want to create this opportunity where we really structure the torso. And as we structure the torso, of course, we're going to be able to get this greater amount of drive and force through the center. So if you were to, and this isn't 100% accurate, but if I were to pull straight through here, you know, what I really want to do is I want to pull through the center of the pedal. If I'm pulling right through the center of the foot, I'm going to go through the center of the gastroc and soleus. I'm going to go through the center of the quad, and then I'm going to go right through the center of the back there. Now, the point here is that then I'm going to be able to use my saddle, my seat, as a lever. So I'm going to be able to draw force. As long as I'm sitting on my saddle properly, I'm going to be able to draw force continually in a rotational movement that entire time, because I'm always making contact with the pedal. the saddle, and I've always got this tension in the body that's driving the force. Does that make sense to you?
It does, and the position of the spine right here, it's also going to decrease that load and decrease the compression through the spine, which I would imagine would save a whole lot of low back pain that some of the cyclists may be getting.
Yeah, you know, and interesting you say that, because what you'll typically find, you know, you'll find some people kind of curve up this way, and then they'll get into this position, and then of course, what does that do? That then puts that strain on that L4-5 area. So, you know, and then it's going to put strain onto the shoulders as well. So, but from a traditional setting, when we're talking about strength training, you know, there's a lot of people that concentrate on the hams and the glutes. Obviously makes sense for this type of body position and how you have to draw force. But if we concentrate more on that posterior lower leg and we create more range of motion in the foot, we're going to be able to allow the body to position the knees and the hips on top of that bike in a more efficient manner.
Right, I agree.
The other thing that it'll do is, the problem is, what nobody thinks about here is within this area, if the posterior lower leg is tight, it's going to try to point the foot. It's going to take that dorsiflexion out of the foot. And so when you come out of the saddle, what's going to happen is you're going to strain the anterior tibialis, and it can potentially do some damage to the knee there. So it's also going to force you to put too much weight onto your hands through that process. So if we just address that posterior lower leg so that you can get out of the saddle, get the bike moving on top of or below the hands there, we're going to be able to drive more force, but at the same time, we're going to reduce wear and tear on the foot as well.
Sounds good.
So the big thing here is for, you know, people that are triathletes and all that kind of stuff, you know, they got to get off the bike, they got to run. You know, obviously that posterior lower leg is going to be traumatized. Do you think they need to spend more time in the gym, or do you think that they need to do more to maintain the muscle tissue so that they have the elasticity through that area?
And maintaining elasticity will be huge, especially in something that's going to require so many miles, so much repetitive action. They're going to need that mobility. It's going to be really important throughout their race, throughout their life.
Yeah, so the big thing here is, and you've heard me talk about this all the time, I'll look right at the camera and say hydration. Dehydration is evil. And so when we go through these repetitive movements over and over and over again, you got to think this posterior lower leg, it's trashed on a daily basis, and dehydration takes in. So then you create friction within the muscle, and then it starts to lock up. It doesn't move as efficiently as it would otherwise.
Right.
So what we want you to think about is when you have any kind of soft tissue solution, always think about hydration first and after, so that we can rid the waste product. But at the end of the day, we want to add water into that sponge. We want to give you more tissue tolerance, fulcrums, levers, efficiencies of movement. And the way that we think that you can do that is through a soft tissue care component, and then of course hydration. You
Right.
agree?
Absolutely.
And then can we strengthen above that to make sure that the muscles are strong?
Yeah, once you create the mobility, you have good range of motion, good movement, good posture, then strengthening will go better on top of that than it would if you did it before you created the mobility.
That's such a great point. That you want to create the mobility first, that soft tissue solution, and then we can strengthen on top of that, and you're going to get a heck of a lot more out of the muscle.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So hope you guys enjoy that. This is a little bit about the bike, because we've got Interbike coming up in 2 weeks. Bottom line, you got to take care of your body. A healthy body is a healthy mind. This is Cassidy and Kyle. We've gone through our think tank here at Trigger Point, and we'll see you next time.